The Absent Soldier. By Fereshteh Sari. The taxi stopped in front of Shahid Amir Zamani Alley. The driver asked, "Can a car go through the alley?" I said, "No." He said, "Do you want me to make a turn from the other end?" I said, "Thanks. But it just takes 5 minutes." "Come along, Alale, dear." Alale curled up in the corner of the back seat, her sleepy rabbit tucked in her arm. She was frowning. I knew she was unhappy with me but pretended I didn't see. I gave the money to the driver. I leaned inside the car, took Alale in my arms, and brought her out. She said, "What are you doing, Mummy?" "The sleepy rabbit is waking up." Before we left the house, she kept me waiting for half an hour. First, she picked up her talking doll and wound it up. The doll then started crawling on the floor and crying like a baby. Alale said, "Don't cry. When we get to Grandma's house, I won't put you down, not even for 1 minute, not even if I go to the bathroom. You mustn't be scared, and I'll keep you in my arms." I picked up her yellow and red dress from the ironing board and laid it on her bed. "Alale, dear, hurry up, put your clothes on. Grandma has made a delicious lunch and is waiting for us." Alale picked up another doll and said, "Okay." She didn't say, as she always did, "I don't want to come." I opened the middle drawer of the chest and put all the folded clothes inside. I opened the sock drawer and began impatiently searching. I said, "Alale, where are your red socks?" She picked up her black doll, took the red socks off its chubby feet, and flung them into the middle of the room. I said, "Why would you do that to your only decent pair of socks?" She put her black doll to bed and waited for me to leave the room so she could start talking to it again. Finally, she said, "Leave my room." I said, "Very well. But hurry up, take one of your dolls, put on your clothes, and come. I am ready." She kept telling every single doll she picked up that they shouldn't worry and that she wouldn't leave them alone at Grandma's house, as if she were going on a very long trip. In the end, she didn't bring any of her dolls. Instead, she carried her brown woolly rabbit with its half-closed eyes. Once, when she was 3, and we had gone to my mother's house, she sat in the middle of the room, bending over some drawing paper. I boiled her an egg, put it in a bowl with a small red flower, and told her, "Alale, dear, eat it before it gets cold. I'll be back right away." She murmured, "Okay," but it was evident that she was paying attention to the drawing on the paper. I went to the roof to drop a message at the neighbor's house. Mother had gone to the store at the end of the alley to buy some vegetables. I was coming down the stairs when I heard the sound. The sobbing was rising brokenly from her bosom. I felt an unfamiliar ache in my heart. I rushed down the stairs 2 at a time and ran to the room. She was standing in the middle of the room. She had the bowl of eggs in one hand and a teaspoon with a little bit of egg in it in the other. Her hand was frozen in the air, halfway to her mouth. She was trembling like a chick just out of the shell. I rushed over, took the bowl and spoon from her, put them on the floor, and hugged and held her in my arms. I wiped away her tears and sweat and waited for her to recover her breath. I asked her jokingly, "What did you think happened to me?" She didn't say a word. She must have been in her world. Probably, she had picked up the bowl and the spoon and had eaten a bit, and then she had asked me something, thinking I was in the kitchen, and then the echo of silence and the eternal horror of being alone had shocked her. Even now, when I remember that day, my heart aches. Alale had forgotten everything but was in a bad mood whenever we went to my mother's. In the cab, I asked her, "Why are you frowning so? Don't you like Grandma?" She said, "No. The driver said, always ask the kids if you want the truth. I asked her, why not, my dear? She said, because she is old, she is ancient. Banafsh says people get so small that they become like ants when they age. Don't you ever get old, Mommy, okay? I don't want to lose you. The driver said, that's the trouble with kindergartens, lady. My daughter also keeps on. I said, my daughter does not go to kindergarten. Alale said, even if you do get old, try to get old just a little bit, just this much, okay? The driver said, excuse me, but what does the child's father do? I said, he was lost in action. He was sent to the front as part of the students' project. He has been lost ever since. The driver said, trust in God. Just the day before yesterday, both sons of our neighborhood pastry shop owner, we thought they had been martyred 7 years ago, and their father mourned them for 40 days, came back from the war, hale and hearty. The father gave away every sweet in the shop to the neighbors. Alale said, Mommy, what does my daddy do? I said, I told you, my dear, when he comes back and finishes his studies, he will be an engineer. As we were walking to the house, I bought 2 balloons. When we crossed the street, I gave them to Alale and said, blow them up when we arrive at Grandma's. She said, Mommy, I want a green one too. I said, okay, wait here a minute. I crossed the street again and bought a green one from the shop. I returned, gave it to Alale, and said, now, do we have Her Majesty's gracious leave to go? We arrived at the alley. Alale asked, Mommy, what is the name of this alley? Amir laughed at that alley sign and said, the girls can't play. I said, Amir. He was our neighbor's son. The one across from Grandma's. Alale said, how do you know, were you here? I said, no, Your Highness. I have been honored to wait on you from the first day. She laughed. She loved to ask questions to which she already knew the answers. Amir grabbed the cloth ball from Pejman and began to knock it around. Pejman said, shall we begin? Amir said, the girls can't play. Pejman said, if you don't let Homer play, I'll take back my ball. The kids began chanting, go away, you German, with your cute ball. I said, it doesn't matter, Pejman. I wouldn't say I like volleyball. I'll watch you play. Look at him, the mama's boy. He has cut his hair like a German dog. Here, take your ball and go and play with the girls. But first, let me stroke your face a bit, nice baby, cute baby. Smack. Pejman took his hand off where Amir had slapped him. The delicate white skin of his face was now the same color as his red cloth ball. Tears were about to fall from his big honey-colored eyes, so he looked at me. I said, let's play, Pejman, just the 2 of us. He said, you just said you don't like to play. I said, I do now. I said, who cut your hair? He said, my mom. Pejman's chestnut hair fell over his high forehead. The back of his head to his starched collar was shaven. Pejman said, I told Mom you think I don't need a haircut, but she said I might have a sweat burn on the back of my neck. Pejman, come inside, it's time for your afternoon snack. Didn't I tell you not to go farther than the electricity pole? Come inside, dear. The door was closed, and the fragrance of recently watered geraniums wound in the alley. Shahbanu came out of Pejman's house with a bag under her arm. The geraniums were dried up, and I was waiting, in vain, for their lost fragrance. Alale said, Mommy, why are you standing behind the door? If Grandma isn't home, let's return to our house. My dolls are screaming. Listen, do you hear them? I said, I am coming, dear. Wait a minute. Right here, behind Grandma's house, I am coming. And I ran. Shahbanu had reached the middle of the alley. In the old days, she used to work in other houses, too, but she has been working only for Pejman's mother for many years now. As I ran after her, I said, why don't you tell Pejman's mother that the war has ended? Why not? Alale was crying and running toward me. Mummy, let's go home. Let's not go to Grandma's anymore. My mother had come out of the house next to Pejman's. What is going on, Homer? Why are you going back? Why is Alale crying? Shahbanu was now near the street. I shouted, why don't you tell them the war has ended? For God's sake, tell them to open the door of that fortress. Pejman has withered away in that house. When Shahbanu reached the sign with the name of the alley, she turned. I said, don't you have any conscience? At least tell Pejman that the war is ended, tell him he's not a draftee anymore. Isn't there a radio or television in that house? Amir laughed inside the sign's frame and said, girls can play. I wiped Alale's tears away and said, all right, my dear. As soon as we eat lunch, we'll go home. Are you tired? Do you want me to carry you? Alale said, no. This sleepy rabbit is tired. I can walk. Alale said, Mommy, don't take my hand. I can walk by myself. My dolls aren't screaming anymore. See? They are playing. They know that we're going back to them very soon. They were just afraid of my becoming an ant. If I turn into an ant, I won't be able to play with them anymore. How can I? I sat on the bench at the bus station. Pejman, with his starched collar and combed chestnut hair, was the first to come out of the schoolyard. He waited next to the curb and looked attentively to his right until all the cars had passed. Then, in the middle of the street, he looked to his left. Finally, a car let him pass. I stood up, took my books and organizer in one hand, and brushed the dust off my school uniform with the other. I said, Pejman, let's go home the longer way. Pejman said, Mom will be worried. I said, tell her your class had to stay an extra hour. I can't lie to her. Well, you dropped your fountain pen. I'll pick it up myself. No, I'll pick it up. Pejman bent and picked up my pen. A spot of blue ink fell on his hand like a broken star. Pejman said, is your pen leaky? I said, sometimes. I said, there's ink on your hand. He said, if Mom gives me permission, I will never clean the ink off my hand. I said, that's enough. Give it to me. He said, wait, let me put it in your organizer so the ink won't get on your hand. I said, it wouldn't matter even if I went home without a hand, my mom wouldn't notice. He said, you are making fun of me too. I said, no, you know I'm not. He said, yes, I know. I said, not always. We were in the middle of the alley when Mother put her head out the door and, while putting her hand over her eyes to shade them from the sun, shouted, is this pint-sized kid twisting you around her little finger again? Take her hand and bring her in. I am starving. Half of the rice is stuck together by now. Alale said, oh, good. I love crispy rice. I smiled into her eyes, and Alale placed her soft hand on mine and said, Mommy, you love coming to Grandma's house. I said, well, she is my mom, my dear. She said, then why do you always go onto the roof and leave me alone with Grandma? I am scared of her. Let's go home soon today, okay? All around the vases of geraniums, there were little pieces of paper folded like aeroplanes. He hadn't opened any of my messages. They didn't even open the door to anyone. I used to go onto the roof and throw those letters into their yard. In one of them, I had written the address of a smuggler I had spent a lot of time finding and how they were supposed to contact him. He was very trustworthy, and the way he took people out of the country was straightforward. If Pejman's mother wanted to sell his inheritance, she could get him over the border. I knew that if I suggested that Pejman be taken through the mountains, hiding himself in a sheepskin and crossing the border with the herd, or things like that, she would have had a heart attack. But this go-between was very easy. He would make a false passport and visa and take Pejman easily to the Mehrabad airport and straight to Sweden. But his mother had hidden Pejman in an impregnable fortress, waiting for the war to end. None came out of the house, and the door was opened only to Shahbanu. Once a week, the fortress door would open a little, and Shahbanu would carry the things she had bought under her chadar 5 and go in. Alale softly closed the door and said, "Shush, the fish are sleeping." Then she bent over the pool and looked at the fish. Mother came to the veranda and shouted, "Will this child let you come in? Lunch is already on the table. It's getting cold." Alale said, "Now the fish are awake because of Grandma's screaming. They have to eat first, go bring them some bread." Mother said, "God save us. I've never seen anything like this before." And she frowned and went in and sat at the table. I took a piece of bread and gave it to Alale. Then I sat at the table, took a piece of crispy rice, put it on the plate, and poured a spoonful of vegetable stew. Chewing the crispy rice was making a lot of noise in my ears. Mother was talking, maybe about the grocery man or the pain in her feet. In the middle of the sound of chewing the crispy rice, I heard a door close. I paused in the middle of a mouthful. I thought it was the door of Pejman's house closing. I wanted to rush up the stairs, go to the roof, and see who went to their house. But Alale came in and sat at the table. I put some food on her plate and began chewing. The noise filled my ears again. Mother must have asked me something because she was looking at me, waiting for an answer. I shook my head. Alale said, "Certainly not. After lunch, we won't sleep. We want to go back home right away." I pushed my plate away. Mother said, "I told you, after lunch, you will sleep next to your mom like a normal child. In the evening, she is going to take me to the Ebni Babve cemetery, to my mother's grave." Then she looked at me and said, "When was the last time, Homer? My mom has been waiting for me all this time." Alale said, "Certainly not. She is supposed to take me back to my dolls." I stood up, took my plate to the kitchen, and turned on the faucet. Pejman came to the bus station and said, "Let's go, Homer." I said, "Why from there?" He said, "Didn't you want us to go the longer way?" I said, "How about your mom?" He said, "Today we had an extra class." But I didn't stay. I said, "Won't you tell her?" He said, "She won't ask. We'll get home on time." He said, "How is your fountain pen?" I said, "It's better now. It doesn't leak anymore. By the way, do you know, Pejman, that when I was a kid, I was so afraid of my dream that I went dumb." He said, "Really? What was your dream about?" I said, "I didn't go to school for 3 years. I was 10 when I went to the 1st grade. How old are you, Pejman?" He said, 14. I said, "I am 3 years older than you are." He said, "That's good." I turned off the faucet, but it was dripping. I told Mom, "You think I don't need I tightened the faucet and came back to clear the table. Alale pushed away her half-eaten plate, took her sleepy rabbit in her arms, and said, "Mommy, I am ready. I am going to see the fish. Finish the table soon, and let's go home." Mother said, "What is this child talking about? Do you want to go now? Didn't you tell me you would take me to my mother's grave?" I pulled the napkin over the tablecloth and said, "Alale is lonely. She wants to go back to her dolls." Mother said, "God saves us. You listen to this pint-sized kid." But sobs stopped her complaining. She put her head on the pillow. I gathered the rice grains at the corner of the tablecloth. I looked at Mother and then at the red line of Alale's skirt. I knew Mother would not forget this heartbreak, and Alale, tomorrow, would forget everything. But there would be a dark spot in her memory, and many of these spots. I chose Alale, who was the future. Alale shouted from the yard, "Mummy, Mummy, come, hurry up. There is an older man at the door asking for you. Hurry up before he turns into an ant." I shouted inside the room, "Wait a minute, I'm clearing the table. I'll come, and then we'll go home." Alale said, "Hurry up, Mummy. He is tiny. He is going to become an ant right now." I put the tablecloth in the kitchen and picked up my purse. Mother was pretending to be asleep. I don't know why someone inside me said, "Life is the ground for continuous battles, and we are all unknown soldiers." Alale stood beside the door, saying, "Hurry up, Mummy, hurry up." I thought she had made up the story so we would go home sooner. Alale moved away from the door. He stood behind the door, and on his pale hand was an ink stain, a broken star. His white hair was cut German style. His starched collar had almost crept inside his bent back. The skin of his face was still as delicate as the cloth of his ball. He said, "Shahbanu is back and says the war is finished. Is it true, Homer?" I said, "No, dear Pejman, war will never be ended. Hurry up and go back home." From the sign posted at the corner of the alley, I could hear Amir shouting, "The girls can play, too."